everyone, welcome back to my channel. I just wanted to do a quick follow-up while I was on my trip to the Northwest Tarot Symposium, and I mentioned in my previous video that I would be making a trip out of it because it does take a lot to road trip down from where I live to the Northwest Tarot Symposium. It's about a 4.5-hour drive. So we decided to hang west and head towards the ocean and the beach, which is one of my first loves. We're on the Oregon coast, staying in a tiny home community. Yeah, just thought it'd be a great time to check in because the energy here is calm, serene. You hear the ocean waves, you have nature. I'll show you a little bit here, the view I have outside my tiny home window. I mean, this tiny home is superb. The Sandbug tiny home at Tiny Tranquility, the community. It's just magnificent. Yeah, so in my last video I kind of went through some decks that I was debating on whether or not I was going to take with me to the Northwest Tarot Symposium. That was my first trip there, so I really didn't know what to expect. I probably overpacked like I usually do. Packed way too many decks. And I ended up only using one tarot deck, my trusty Traveler's Oracle deck, and I purchased a Lenormand at the symposium. They had a vending hall there to use in one of the workshops. I thought I'd go over what I'm coming back with. It's kind of cool. They have a tray table that you can usually leave decks there that you no longer use, and then pick up decks from other people who left them. So great idea to try out some decks that have been on my radar. And then they have, like, just for any of you who don't know and they're curious, they have tons of workshops Friday through Sunday. They just have a lot of workshops from various deck creators who are well known in the community, book writers. So it's really cool to put like a person or a personality to a name of like a deck I love. So I really enjoyed that. Also, they tend to incorporate their own published material so that you get to experience it and use it. And that way, if you want to purchase it, you can. I highly recommend going at least once in a lifetime. It is an exhausting, though, adventure, especially if you try to hit all the workshops all 3 days, which I did because just to get a feel for it. It's a pretty big event. There's a lot of people and you get to meet a lot of cool people. Oftentimes you might pair off and do readings for each other, and so it's a great place to just play with your cards and play with others. And if you grew up like me in a family where nobody shared your interests and you often played alone, this is a great place to connect with others and play with others. So I recommend it. So I'm going to show you what I'm coming back with. I'll start with some of the decks I picked up from the table. So the Wisdom Oracle has been one deck that has been on my radar. I do have maybe one, I know for sure I have one other Colette Baron Reed deck. I don't believe I have any more than that. It's a spirit animal one, I think. I was really interested in this because I usually see a lot of people using it in their readings, but it's not really like the type of artwork I like or that I'm drawn to, and I wasn't sure how much I would get along with it. So what I did was I did the trade. I took it home and then I pulled a card to ask if it was meant for me, and I think I pulled this card here, To the Sea, and I thought, wow, how perfect, because I'm headed to the ocean, so maybe this deck would want to come with me. And it does kind of have a lot of that oceany, watery vibes, that dreamy quality that you get when you're near nature, that anything's possible. Because when you see the ocean and you see the forest, you are just at awe of its beauty and its just majestic, right? So I feel like this deck combines the grounded nature or the grounded reality of nature along with the dreamy possibilities of it as well. So I think this is going to be one I'll take home, I'll play with. Maybe, I'm not sure if it's something I'll keep long term, because I don't want to just keep decks to keep. And really interested in getting to know it. I do have similar decks to it in that dreamy quality of it that are my favorite. This one could come off a little bit too computer graphic, I think, which I prefer like hand-drawn decks. But yeah, we'll see. I'll play around with it. This is the Wisdom of the Oracle. I've seen it before, I've been interested in playing with it, and now I have that chance. And I'll show you a little bit. Here's the book. It's a chunky book. And it's got a little bit about the card, Oracle's message, a relationship message, prosperity message, protection message. You know, I've noticed that I'm not like a huge fan of books that break up messages depending on what you're reading for, because it's too easy to kind of go for the one that you're always interested in. So I usually just prefer that it's like one, like almost like reading a book. It's one large message. I'll enjoy just exploring and see what this is like. Okay, so Wisdom of the Oracle. Okay, so the next one I picked up from the table is the Barbara Walker Tarot. I have seen this quite a few times. I like that it's a very unique, goes its own way a little bit deck, and it comes in a tin, so it makes it quite interesting. I got a general feel from people who own this deck what this deck is about and kind of like what they get from it. And so I passed on the deck originally quite a few times, but then I'd always come back to it and look at some of the images to see if it was something I could connect with. So funny story, I picked this deck up from the table at the Northwest Tarot Symposium, and then I went home and I did a reading with it, and I asked the deck, you know, does this deck belong to me, or does it have a place in my collection? And I think the card I got was Decline. And then I kind of went through the images and I was like, yeah, I'm not really sure that I'm gonna enjoy working with this deck. I asked this deck, what does this deck provide? Something like that. And the card that came up was Challenge. So from what I've heard from other people, that it is quite a confronting, challenging deck, and some of the imagery is also confronting and challenging. But, you know, I kind of like a kick in the ass, so I was like, you know, this will push me out of my comfort zone. What a great deck to work with. Well, anyways, since I pulled the Decline card, I took it back and put it back on the table, because I was like, nah, this deck's not for me then. And then the next day, after the first workshop, I kind of made my way to an empty corner, because there were so many people there, but it's in very small spaces between the workshops, and so not a lot of room to move, and I kind of get claustrophobic when I'm around a lot of people. So I found an empty corner to move to wait for the next class. And as I'm standing there, I look down to my left, and randomly, far from the table, the Barbara Walker Tarot is sitting there. So I don't know if somebody intended to put it there, or they grabbed it and accidentally left it there just to set it down. But yeah, so like literally 20 feet away from the table in just some random corner, sitting on some random collection of things. It was staring at me in a very eerie way. So I was like, all right, you're coming with me. I'll work with you. And we'll see if we can get along, or at least make magic happen. Here's a challenge card that one of the cards I got about what this deck can offer. Almost as if it can offer nuggets of wisdom, knowledge, but because they are wands, red, fire, maybe knowledge of a fiery sense or variety. Maybe some hard truths, I guess. That's a good way to put it. So, the art style's okay. It's kind of interesting. Of course, this card is quite difficult. I don't like looking at it. It reminds me of a scene in a movie. And this one too, King of Pentacles, not my favorite. It's very fierce and stoic, cold. And then some of the figures seem a little Disney princess to me. Like here, the Wicked Witch. There's a black cat in that one. But this one's interesting. I'm interested in learning what this is about. It could end up becoming a favorite depending on, what I can learn from it. And that's really what I like to do with my decks, is learn from them. Yay, success. Okay, so I'll end on that one. And it comes with a little white book. I'm a little disappointed in the book because it does have a lot of very detailed information about the background. Almost like, maybe it's a little bit too much information that I'm not familiar with. So it could be good for somebody who's really immersed in the various ideologies, but I'm not sure I plan to go that broad. I like to go deep, but I'm not sure I like to go broad. So we'll see. So now I'm going to show you some of the decks I purchased. I was a lot more mindful in this, I don't know what you call it, endeavor. That's what it felt like. I was a lot more mindful in this endeavor as to what I would be purchasing and bringing back with me. Over the years, now that I'm in my 30s, I am getting better at being more particular. But often, what happens is when I walk into a shopping space, like the vending hall at Northwest Tarot Symposium, I want to support all the sellers there. I feel for them. Especially like maybe the vendors where people just walk by them, they don't get a lot of action. So I was planning on spending some money just to support vendors. And I did want to pick up a couple decks if I really, really like them. I didn't want to limit myself. I was going to limit myself as to how much I spent or how many decks, but not really limit myself from purchasing at all. So I ended up getting a tarot reading. I paid for one. That was really good there. I ended up buying a couple oils and a couple decks and a t-shirt. So I didn't overdo it, So one of the decks I bought was the Awakened Soul by Ethne. I have two of her decks. One is the Goddess Oracle, and the other one is Modern Love Tarot. Now, the thing about her decks is I am such a fan of the artwork, but I'm not really a fan of the books. And this one was one of her decks that was on my wish list, but I ended up deciding not to purchase it. And then when I went to Tarot Symposium, I forgot that that's what I decided, and so I ended up purchasing it because, I mean, the image is beautiful. The first card I pulled is Sovereignty, which is, I think, is an energy I should be working with and on. So I love the artwork. It's modern, cool, calming, cohesive, dark, but I can relate because this is from my lifetime. What people are wearing, what they're doing, what they're focused on, how things are represented. I like decks that portray various eras across time because I connect with past time as well, but also present time. I think it's important that if I ever keep these decks for future generations, you know, they get a sense of what my lifetime was like, what I was exposed to, and they can build on that with their own decks. So what was cool was I got to meet Ethany. She's a really cool person. She also presented at one of the workshops there, so that was great. She's a great speaker. And I was able to get her to sign this deck since I purchased it directly from her, so that was pretty awesome. And she signed the first page here, so thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Also, the reason why I purchased this deck was because I liked that this book for this deck was one message for each card, one long message. So it didn't really split up the message into like relationship, work, spiritual, you know, like the Modern Love Tarot deck does and the Goddess Oracle does. The resolution I came up with, well, it keeps it all as one message. It's gonna be more enjoyable to read and get something out of it. So I decided to pick up the Awakened Soul. Can't wait to work with it. I think it's beautiful. The last decks that I purchased are these two. I believe this is self-published. I'm not sure if a publishing company has published this. It seems more self-published, but it's by Marie Bento, both a tarot deck and a Lenormand. This is called the Lenormand, and this one here is the Lua Tarot. The creator of this deck, she is beautiful, wonderful. She's got a lot of great energy. So it was such a pleasure to meet her. I purchased these, then went back the next day and asked her to sign them, and she did. I love when deck creators sign decks because it just makes it feel more personal, like you get the person with the deck. So it definitely connects their energy for me. And honestly, her style and the way she put together these decks, I would say, check a lot of boxes for me and what I like to see in a deck. Down to coloring and imagery and just the vast array of cultures and people of different backgrounds are represented here. It definitely taps into my lineage because I have a lot of different stuff that usually one deck cannot encompass, but these decks do. I do have some Lenormand decks, so I wasn't really shopping for one, but I loved it so much, and it matched the tarot deck, so I was like, why not? And then I ended up using it, so that's great. Here's the divinemuses.net website if you wanted to go purchase these decks. I forgot which deck. She has a popular one that I've heard quite a bit. I don't remember the name of it. So it's not like people wouldn't know her decks. I just really haven't seen these ones. And she did come out with a newer deck as well but that wasn't really something I was looking for, not really my aesthetic. This one is. So really love the black and white shading, and monochromatic, so it makes it really easy to see what's in here, even though it's quite detailed imagery. It feels very old-fashioned to me, and not in a cheesy way or like a cartoony way, but in a very serious, grounded way. I love that. And I love the Baroque borders. Super cool. Love the moon. I love when there's like an actual moon, a full moon in the moon card for either the tarot or the Lenormand. It's just so much more stunning. We've been getting a lot of moons like these lately while in Oregon. So what's cool is you kind of get a choice. For the child card, you can use this one here with mother-like figure. This one here, which is super cute too. And there's also an older child. So you have a choice between these three. Like I mentioned before, I usually throw in all the cards, extra cards that come with the deck, because, you know, if I get this image versus this image, the discs convey two different messages, you know, and this compared to this also conveys different messages, because these two children are at different points in their developmental stage. I mean, this is curious about the world, and this one is developing certain interests. Child looks to be around 7 or 8 maybe. So but I haven't thrown them in yet. I was using this in a workshop, and it was like a find your purpose workshop, and I think the first question was, what is your purpose? Or she called it a through line, the person who led the workshop. And when I started pulling cards from the Lenormand, I got a man, and then I pulled another card, I got another man. I got like 4 men in a row, and I was like, wait a minute. And then at one point I got a ring, so I was like, okay, multiple marriages or something is my purpose. But then I realized that they actually, or she actually includes different options for the male figures. So he's like all tattooed, which is really cool too. So he could be like an ancestor of mine. And here's another male presenting figure. Here's another one. And then also for the female presenting figures, I should say feminine or masculine. So she's a masculine presenting figure. Here's another masculine presenting figure. Oh, look at this one. I didn't notice this one before, but she has tattoos on her back. See that? Another feminine, masculine, feminine. I really like this one. She almost resembles the creator to me. She'll have to confirm or deny that. Here's another one. So again, I feel like I can really connect with this deck and the tarot deck, you'll see, because all these people represent different ancestors in my lineage, where I come from. So that's the Lenormand, or Lenormand, or however people pronounce it. Very pretty. Now for the tarot deck. It's the inside cover there. So the Lenormand does not come with a book. The tarot deck does. And so you can see there's about a page dedicated to each card. And there is some information, a good chunk of information, just for background and use of the deck. I think it's a great book. Can't wait to dig into it. And she has this little quote here. Could be, I'm not sure what language, but maybe I'll type it into some Google Translate, figure that out. Okay, so she did autograph it for me. Thank you so much. And just go through some of the cards. So again, monochromatic. You know, it'd be cool to see it in color too, like some very bold, vibrant colors, like this card here. Love how the world is depicted. There's some celestial bodies and some nature and trees at the bottom. King of Cups. But I love the black and white. I know a lot of people aren't too keen black, white, and gray, but you know, you just really see the detail so much more clearly with monochromatic decks. Ten of Wands, Three of Cups, Nine of Swords. You don't actually see 9 swords here, but you definitely get the feeling, the energy, the vibe of the room. Vibe of his bedroom. Ace of Swords, Page of Wands. See, if you struggle with court cards like I do, because I want to see the energy and it's hard to get past, sometimes with the traditional RW system, there's not movement going on, you know, so sometimes it takes me a while to register the court card quickly. But for instance, Page of Wands here, a letter, and you know, he looks quite young, so this registers really fast for me. Four of Cups, so beautiful. And I feel like when I'm working with this deck, which I have done a couple spreads with it, I feel like I'm transported to this time, and I'm living in this time. The Empress. Again, another image that harkens back to my ancestors that I can connect with. A lot of these characters in here, I can trace my lineage back to. So upon okay, sorry about that, just wanted some more peace and quiet as someone's working on something outside. Now what you might hear is my dog snoring because he's sleeping next to me. But so what was I gonna say? I don't remember. There is a very dreamy quality to this deck too. But also, look at this Ten of Swords. There's no swords in this deck, but you definitely get a sense that, for instance, like on the Oregon Trail days, if somebody died or if they passed away for whatever reason, illness, lack of food, water, they might just leave them on the side of the road or bury him there and then continue on the journey. And that's almost the sense you get here. It's a sort of betrayal, but it's the nature of life at that time. That, you know, someone died outside, they couldn't just take them to the nearest hospital. So if they're in the middle of nowhere, you might be resting in nature and everybody would move on. So I really like how this steps outside the RWS box, but it's still very relatable. This is kind of like a Jesus-like figure. And this wouldn't bother me, like for instance this image, because, you know, I respect different people's beliefs and their ideologies, so it doesn't bother me to have that represented in different decks. Even though I've had some bad experiences with certain faiths, I understand. I understand what it is to believe in something. And for people to hold that on tightly as a part of their identity. I'm not so much like that in that way, but I get it. It's a feeling and form of belonging. Plus, my grandma used to have those images all over her house, and I respect her. Well, if anything, I was more inspired by her devotion. So lovers. So again, you don't actually see the wands, but the feeling's still there, and it's kind of amazing to see that. Normally, if there's titles, I want to look at the title first and then see the image. So for a few of my decks, I cut off the titles just so I can rely on the images and not use the titles as a crutch. But this one, I don't even want to look at the titles. I can look at the image and interpret it very clearly. So cool. And that's the Lua Tarot. Okay, so besides that, I'll just share a little bit of the workshops that we got to enjoy, just so you know for future reference if you ever want to go. I took my journal with me, and that way I was able to also do some spreads while in the hotel. Vanille had a workshop. That was really cool. Roadmap to recovery. I want to say like a healing spread. So it'd help you target the areas, practical areas of health. It also helped you to word things in a way if you're reading for others, to avoid legal liability, because you don't want to pretend like you're a doctor. So, you know, it's more metaphorical healing, but there is a practical component to it that people can use. And so we did a spread, and then we interpreted the cards according to the elements, and that pointed to like different areas of the body that could be affected. And so that was a lot of fun. And then she had this decoder here to decode what the different cards are illuminating. And so that was a lot of fun. That was one workshop there. Another workshop I attended was the Hoodoo and Tarot Equation workshop, which also focused on healing, and we pulled cards for that, and then identified the elements, and then we also selected a Bible verse from her Hoodoo Bible. Sherry Schoen is the author of that book, and then what offering you would give. So that was another cool workshop. I did an anatomy of intention casting map. I think what I'll do is just do that. That makes it easier. Okay, so yeah. And sometimes they would give you handouts, so that was really handy. And Sherry Schoen did, yeah, tools for self-care in times of burnout, uncertainty, and anxiety. By that hoodoo lady. Yeah, so this one was fun too. Anatomy of intention casting. So we had a bunch of charms that we used, and we pulled some cards, and you can see here. I would take a picture of every one of my spreads so that I could print it later and put it in my journal. But you can see the silver charms there. And so the workshop was about providing us with a spread that we can use along with tarot and charms. And that was with Carrie Paris. I ended up purchasing one of her charm kits that is on the way, because I had never worked with them, but oh man, I really enjoyed them. You can get a lot out of it. It was amazing that some of the charms I pulled were charms that were representing various messages coming from images out in life and nature. Like for instance, that pearl card I just mentioned, doing a reading the other day, and I got an oracle card with the pearl card. So just very interesting. You can see the charms there. Pretty cool. So what else? Divination on Purpose was another workshop I took. That was a lot of fun. We calculated, oh no, this was what I mentioned about the through line. I used my new Lenormand deck along with my Rider-Waite-Smith, and there was like a series of questions, and you pulled different cards for different questions. So some of the questions you pull the tarot cards, some you'd pull the Lenormand. Spinning gold was a really cool workshop too. Spinning gold was really interesting. It was about you know, sometimes you might have a deck that there's like one card in it that makes you want to get rid of that entire deck. So maybe that Barbara Walker deck, that Callie card's going to be the one. But it teaches you how you can transmute the energy. So how you can reconcile, make peace with that card. First you have to understand why you don't get along with that card. And then you make peace by writing a letter. So Jamie Elford conducted this workshop. And then once you make peace with it, you can do spread. And it talks about like the whispers is the advice it has to give, the blessing, and then the outcome. So it was a really cool workshop. I think it's a great spread to use if you're trying to get past certain cards and you want to keep the deck. Then we did divination in the ancient world. So this was primarily I think it was a lecture, and it came with a spread about learning to know thyself, having nothing in excess, and nexus surety is ruined. So I think it was like what you take for granted. I don't remember it that well, but it was a really cool workshop. He had a statue. I forgot what the statue was. I'm sorry, my memory is pretty bad, but you would whisper into the statue and then he would pull a little charm to represent either yes or no answering your question. Which I will say, I'm actually not a fan of yes and no questions, because I feel like when people ask yes or no questions, most people are going to ask a question that they want to hear yes from. I don't know, I think it just kind of limits the potential that can be understood from the question. And maybe my question wasn't specific enough. It was kind of broad and I could have interpreted in many different ways. But I just realized that yes or no question, nobody ever really asks a question where they want to hear the answer is no. Maybe they do. But then when you ask the question, you know how you feel about yes or no. So then you almost know the answer yourself. You don't really need something to tell you. Right? There would be tons of freebies throughout. You would get, like Jamie Sawyer did a workshop where we actually got to see her deck. So this is from Jennifer Stidley, the tarot symbol layer cake. She provided one of her cards, so we get a feel for that, which I actually really like it. I might check it out, see purchasing it. And then Jamie Sawyer included some cards from her decks, which is very neat. I really like this. So everybody got like different cards. And then she included a spread to do. You put her cards on it and you interpret it that way. Another workshop I did, Hey Page, that's your cue, basically about helping you to understand the court cards and how you can use them to kind of play like characters in a theater. Manifest Money was fun. We actually put together a spell and we did a little bit of meditation, and that was a great class. So here's my spell. Actually I have to shake it today. I didn't shake it yesterday. There we go. Okay, another workshop, Tarot Apothecary. That was fun. We calculated our birthday to get our card for the year. Sorry if you can hear my dog. Hey puppy. He's snoring. Okay. So that was a lot of fun. And then we kind of drank some tea and smelled some essential oils and created our own mantra for the card. Very neat. Oh wait, maybe that was this one. Wait, now I'm getting confused. I left everything in here so I can actually go back and like tape it in so I'll remember, but maybe it got all mixed up. I saw a workshop on the neuroscience of tarot. This here, Dr. Ramatrishnan. So this was great. I mean, a lot of people kind of strayed from the topic and asked a lot of questions about, you know, trauma or PTSD in the brain, and this guy knew a lot of stuff. But yeah, he just discussed how our brain processes the images. What happens when we look at the tarot image, and how our brain goes through all the little circuits it does to come out with meaning. And so that's very interesting. And then Background Players in Tarot by Ethany. So this was Ethany's workshop. She basically tore apart the different layers of tarot cards, like mostly the colors that we see, and what is happening in the background and the foreground of tarot decks, and kind of like, you know, parsing that out. So we did some readings with that. Took a party networking workshop. There are a lot more experiential workshops that you can do, but that's not really my style. I'm more reserved in a learning style rather than experiential. I tend to be really shy, so I'm going to avoid any workshops that require me to network or interact if I don't have to. I just happened to fall into that networking class because the other one was full, and that's kind of rare that would happen, so that was the only class where that occurred. So this was another tarot casting. This was Jamie Sawyer's workshop. And now I get to show you this spread she gave us. So it was on this sticker paper, and with the cards she gave us, you would put them down on the sheet here and do reading that way. And then she also gave us a handout with the different spreads that we could do. That was really an awesome workshop. Okay, so I think that's everything. I mean, besides that, well, they gave you these cute little tags that you could put on the outside, and then you also had lunch there, and they had a disco party, which I didn't go to, and plenty of raffles. So, I mean, yeah, if you're down to be around like-minded people who are interested in your same interests, it was fun because you can have your cards out, talk to people about it, meet different people. It's just a lot of fun. And recommend going to Northwest Tarot Symposium at least once in your life. I might try to make it an annual tradition just to get away and immerse myself in something different for a whole weekend. It's a nice experience, but it is great to get away afterwards and detox. So thank you for coming to visit. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it inspired you to one day go to the Northwest Tarot Symposium or other similar events. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Bye till next video.